You know that feeling of reading a book and feeling totally immersed in the world of the story? Like you could hear the sounds of the market, smell a distant fire. That's the power of world building. It's the secret sauce that makes readers lose themselves in a story. And whether you're creating an entirely new world from scratch or breathing life into a real city that you've walked the streets of, world building is an art and a science. And today I'm going to share 5 tips to help you master the art of world building. Plus at the end, I'll give you a bonus tip to help you put all of these exercises into play and see how they work for you. Tip number 1, start with the before shot. In a lot of stories, we see the before scene of what a character is doing in their daily life before some event happens or something changes to propel us into what's going to happen in the story. This is a shot of their regular life before everything changes. You want to show the reader what normal life is like. This before shot gives your readers a sense of the everyday world, and it kind of grounds them into what the normal reality is. The setting of your story works overtime in the beginning because that's when the reader doesn't know anything about the story, the characters, the world they live in. And the rest of the story, you can pepper in different aspects of the setting depending on what your story is about. But usually at the beginning, you're going to kind of front load some of the settings so your readers can visualize what's happening through the events of your story. But your setting just doesn't tell readers about the world of your story. It's also reaffirming for them that they've picked up the right book based on the cover, the title, the blurb. Talking about the setting in the beginning of your story is going to tell them they are getting what they expected to get when they picked up this book. And that brings us to tip 2. Tip 2 is to paint the scene. Think of describing your setting like a camera lens. When you're watching a movie, you might start out with a really big picture of a city, and then eventually you'll narrow down to one specific person, one pedestrian on the street or someone in an office building. So you start big and you go small, and that helps give the reader a sense of orientation to know where we are, like what era is it, what world is this Earth? With this camera lens idea, you can zoom in or pull back your reader's focus depending on what you want them to see. So also like a camera lens, you want to talk about the quality of light, the clothes that people are wearing, if it's smoky in the air, what the weather is doing, all these things that you could pick up with a camera lens in a movie. Describe all of those things visually. Setting the mood requires all the senses, so that brings us to tip 3. Tip 3 is to engage all the senses. World building isn't just about what your setting looks like, it also includes what it sounds like, what it feels like, and what it smells like. All these sensory details are going to help ground your reader into living into the world of your story. Now you don't have to include every sensory detail you can think of, because that would just be a little bit overkill, but you do want to have a good list of things that you can pull from just to kind of pepper in through the story, whether it's in a scene of 2 characters talking and you want to give a sense of what's happening around them, you need to describe the setting, and also just to remind the readers what's going on in the world. It's not just 2 people talking, it's not just someone walking down the street. There's a whole world there, and you can describe that with these sensory details. But don't overdo it, and that's tip 4. It's tempting to include everything about this world that you're building, especially if you're making up a fantasy world or a sci-fi world where it's all brand new. It feels very exciting. You have all these ideas that you want to include, but it can be really overwhelming to your reader who is just trying to understand the characters and the plot and what's driving these characters to make decisions that they're making. Your setting needs to enhance the story and not overshadow it. You don't want your setting to steal the spotlight. But that brings us to tip 5. Tip 5 is to use setting to shape the story. What that means is that your setting isn't static. It's a living, breathing thing. Like I said before, sometimes your setting can feel like another character in your story. The history, culture, and rules of the world that your characters live in are going to influence their decisions and actions. A character living in a desert city is going to face different challenges than someone living in a snowy mountain village. By weaving the setting into your characters' lives and plot, you'll really deepen your reader's experience of the world that you've just created. So here's an exercise for you. Set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes and just write pure description of a setting. Any setting, it could be something you've written about before, a new setting that you're thinking of for a story, or it could be a setting that you know well from a movie or another book that you love. The point is to put in as many sensory details as you can. What does it smell like? What does it look like at different times of day? What's the quality of the air feeling like? Is it hot? Is it cold? What's the texture of the clothing that people are wearing? The point isn't to write some good prose, it's just to get down sensory details and to be as descriptive as you can. This exercise can be really helpful to find different ways of describing all these sensory details, and you might be surprised with what you come up with. So those are your 5 tips, plus a little bonus exercise for establishing really good setting in your story. So I'd love to hear from you. What kind of world are you building? Let me know.